Well, guys, what's going on? We're here in Florida in customs, being sent home. We've died all this time, we've trained hard, and we get this far, and yes, we are denied to get in. The lady on the counter was very abrupt, very arrogant. There's no reason um, in arguing with someone like that. What can I do? I've trained this hard. I've worked my ass off. To be denied at this point is, devastating.
All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting bodybuilding stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, the latest physique update from Chris Bumstead. This weekend marks the 2-week out mark from the 2023 Mr. Olympia, and Chris Bumstead in this picture is 2 weeks out. Another most muscular shot, and it's another desaturated black and white photo. I do feel like this photo is a better example and better exemplifies what I've been saying about how I feel like Chris looks rounder, he looks fuller, he looks bigger. I think certainly this photo showcases exactly that. And you can see Hani, his coach, Hani Rambod, commenting in the comment section there to take advantage of the 2 extra pounds. Now, I don't know if he's being facetious or if that is the actual amount that Chris is going to be able to increase. Like I said, the taller guys like Chris, they already are allowed to be pretty heavy for classic physique guys, which is the whole point in giving the shorter guys a bigger weight advantage to be able to compete with some of the taller guys that some people feel might have a competitive advantage being able to weigh so much more. So Chris's increase would be slight. So when we're talking about maybe a fuller or rounder version of Chris here in this update, I think that's an accurate portrayal, but we're not going to see, I don't think, something drastically different if we are only talking about a couple of pounds. And I say that because I don't know exactly what his limit was or what his weight was last year and how far under the limit he was, but I think he was pushing it already towards the top of his weight cap, so he probably really will only have like 2 pounds increase. But whereas with a guy like Terrence, he suggested you could possibly see him like 15 pounds heavier. It's an interesting concept that a lot of these classic guys have brought up is if they are able to be heavier and not have to deplete themselves as hard to make weight at the weigh-ins, that water weight or that fat would be something that could actually provide them additional height at the weigh-in to allow them to be an additional weight heavier. So if they're not as depleted, they could have that additional fat pad at the bottom of their foot not completely shrunken down, and it could be fuller to the extent of maybe half an inch. And some of these guys, that difference could literally put them in another weight class. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. Now, some people were talking about Chris's bicep here, the bicep with the tattoo. They were saying it looks a lot smaller than the one on the right. Now, Chris had this issue last year. He had a torn bicep. A lot of people were pointing out that his arms looked imbalanced. A lot of people were pointing out that one looked bigger than the other. But look, last year he still won without having the surgery yet to fix it. So if he won last year, I don't see it as being something that's going to stop him this year. But I do also see what you guys are talking about. There is a clear size difference in the arms, or at least a difference in the shape of the actual head of the biceps. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below about this latest update from Chris, and where do you think he's going to place at the 2023 Olympia? Will he be your next 2023 Olympia champion? And still... Now, next up in the news, we got to talk about this a little bit. So Nathan D. Asha, yesterday on Instagram, he announced that he had come to the United States, so he flew to Florida from the UK, and he was denied entry to the US and sent back home to the UK, effectively unable to compete at the Olympia this year. Now, he has since said that him and his legal counsel are going to appeal that decision. He says that he had the correct paperwork to get in, and he was still refused. So they're trying to appeal that decision, and they're still trying to get back into the States hopefully in time for the Olympia, but time is quickly running out. And he also put up a status where he talked about how he feels that, A, the Olympia should do more to help the athletes that are from other countries as far as getting them the visa or just helping get them in the country so that they can work, aka competing at the Olympia, or B, that the Olympia should be held internationally and not just in the United States to allow easier access to some of the international competitors for them to be able to get there. So we're going to talk about that portion in the next story, but I want to talk about the Nathan portion specifically here. So this is what I had kind of been saying all along that I was afraid might happen to Nathan. And again, I would like to see Nathan at the Olympia. I hope that his appeal is granted and he's able to get in the States and do the Olympia. But this was the point that I was making. Nathan had some legal issues. He did plead guilty to crimes involving PEDs in the UK. So after he qualified for this year's Olympia, and I was constantly saying, there's a chance that he might not be there. There's a chance that he might not be able to travel to compete. The reason I was saying that is, especially after last year, he qualified for last year's Olympia, said he was going to do it, and then he wasn't there. And then this year, kind of the same thing. He put out a video where he was saying, everybody's saying that I can't be there. They're just hating on me. They're just talking shit. I'm going to be there. And here we have this situation where you got to give him credit. He tried. He came to the States. He flew to Florida. He tried to get in, and he was denied at the border. So the reason why I was concerned was because of these legal issues. He did plead guilty to, we don't have to talk about what it was, but it was involving PEDs. And this was several years back, and he has not been back to the Olympia since. And if I'm not mistaken, he has not been back to the United States since that initial plea. And the reason why that concerned me is because, for example, here in the U.S., most felons, and again, I don't know a whole lot about the UK court system or what the equivalent of a felony there is, but serious crimes, felonies, and people that are convicted felons here in the U.S., most of them are not allowed to leave the country, and most of them are not wanted in other countries when they try to travel to them, so they're not allowed in a lot of those countries. And the U.S. has kind of a similar policy with people coming to the States. As you guys have seen, there's been a lot of talk about our borders recently, and a big concern is criminals coming to America. That's like this big talking point right now, and that's part of the policy. They don't want, I guess, the equivalent of a felon coming from another country to here, which I think, and I don't know this for a fact, but I suspect that's the root of this problem that Nathan is having. Because he has been to the Olympia prior to these legal issues here in the States. But since he's had these legal issues, he has not been allowed to return. So that's what I think the issue is. But again, I hope that he's able to appeal. I hope that he's able to get here. And I think he certainly deserves to be on that Olympia stage. But this was why I was kind of saying this all along. It's not because I didn't want to see him there. It's because I felt like this was exactly what was going to happen. Now, I want to get to the other part of what Nathan said here, where he was addressing the Olympia specifically. Now, the reason I want to talk about this is because the Olympia actually responded. I think this was mostly directed at Nathan. You also have the Behruz Tabani situation, the Iranian bodybuilder who is currently not able to get his visa. So they put out this statement. It says, "A message from the Olympia, immigration challenges." And also, I don't think this just applies to men's open bodybuilding. I think there are some athletes from other countries in a lot of the other divisions that are having trouble getting to the States or are unable to get to the States for the Olympia. So they say in this update, "We've been monitoring some of the challenges certain athletes have faced in their efforts to travel to the United States to compete in this year's Olympia. Matters relating to immigration can be extremely complicated. Each situation brings unique circumstances depending on their resident country, overall political climate, and personal history. As part of our athlete support process, we provide invitation letters to any Olympia competitor who submits a request for one, and these letters are often required in the immigration process, enabling the athlete to validate their reason for entering the country. Unfortunately, many of these matters are far beyond our control, as they are just under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and immigration personnel assigned to the individual case, and we appreciate the work of everyone involved. The sport of bodybuilding stands tall as one of the world's most culturally diverse sports, and we are proud of the diversity of those who have been crowned Olympia champions, and we recently held our Masters Olympia in Eastern Europe, and we continue to explore opportunities to bring the Olympia experience to new regions, connecting with new fans. We are extremely grateful to everyone who has helped make the Olympia the most globally diverse world championship event in the world, even during the most challenging times. So this was a really long-winded way of the Olympia saying, we really can't do anything. I don't know, I think a lot of people probably think that the Olympia organization or even the IFBB is this big, politically influential entity that could have some sway with the government to bring these guys here to compete in their competition. The short answer to that is they're not. They're not nearly as influential as you would think. Outside of the bodybuilding world, no one really cares. You got to look at the fact of the matter that bodybuilding is a very, very niche sport. The other fact of the matter is a lot of the guys, if not all of them, or the majority, are doing illegal things to become competitive in this sport. And it's kind of something that politically or legally or governmentally, people just seem to kind of look the other way about the steroid thing. So essentially, this post is the Olympia saying, it's not our fault, we have no control, there's really nothing we can do about it. We can give you a letter of recommendation, which might help. It might prove that that's why you're coming to the country. But we really have no influence in these decisions whatsoever, which is pretty much the fact of the matter. As much as we love it and bodybuilding fans love it, and to us, it's our Super Bowl, it's the most exciting time of the year, to the rest of the country, nobody really cares about the Olympia, and they really just don't have this kind of sway to get involved in immigration issues. Which brings me to the second part of this point, and that was Nathan, and I think this is why I think it was a response to Nathan, is because Nathan said it's really unfair to some of the international athletes that the Olympia now is always held in America, a country that some people just can't come through no fault of their own. Now, in Nathan's case, I do think it stemmed from his legal issues, but in some of these guys, like Beirut, it's just politics. It's just unfortunate that he comes from where he comes from, and our country has an issue with that country, and it's harder for him to get in. So this part of it I agree with. I don't think there's any real reason why the Olympia has to stay in the United States. Sure, it's probably best for business that it's in the United States. It's probably the easiest, it's probably the smoothest, it's probably the most operable, because pretty much the entire Olympia crew is here in the States. The production company, the production team, it's all based here. So I'm sure the easiest option is to do it in the States, but I don't see any real reason why they couldn't do it all over the world or in different countries and offer that kind of unique opportunity to maybe some people that can't come to the States, even though I do feel like that's the vast minority. I think most people are able to get here to compete, and there's very, very few, if any, that are unable to come because of visa issues. Sometimes it happens, but it's really not a very common thing. And even if they did that, you can't really please everybody. You can't hold the Olympia in every country to please every person that's coming from each part of the world. But the Olympia, historically, it did used to be, it's got worldwide athletes, and it was a worldwide event. It was held all over the world in all different continents. So I kind of agree with that part. I don't see why they couldn't go back to that, and I think it'd be kind of exciting to see the Olympia, even if it was just in the UK, or maybe in the Netherlands, or maybe somewhere in Asia. It would be interesting to see that. But I can see why, from a business standpoint, it probably really doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them to do that as a business. And I know that most of you guys watching this are English-speaking people, so you're thinking, well, most of the fan base for bodybuilding is in America anyway, so it should be in America. But it's really not true. I think probably the biggest fan base for bodybuilding is in India, and I think it's probably way bigger than the English-speaking or the American bodybuilding fan base combined, probably. Now, a lot of the top bodybuilders themselves are actually from America, but again, it's just an interesting conversation. So anyway, I'm curious to know what you guys think in the comments down below. Kind of a little bit of food for thought with those two stories there. Do you think the Olympia should be able to do more to get these guys into the country to compete? Do you guys think that the Olympia should move, perhaps, to a different country to make it easier for some of these international guys to travel, to get there, or just to get approved to go there at all? Or do you think the onus should just be on the athlete? Once you qualify, you've got to do what you've got to do to get there, and that's what everybody else has to do. It might be easier for some people, but that's just kind of life. And that's not going to change no matter where they have the Olympia. It's going to be easier for some people, harder for others. And then as far as Nathan, do you think Nathan will, in fact, be able to get into the country and compete in the Olympia? I certainly hope so. Again, I wish him no ill will, even though he seems not like me for constantly saying I don't think he's going to be there, but that's why. Now, next up in the news, we did also get a physique update from Samson Dauda at under 2 weeks out. He says 13 days out. He says something about men's physique shorts in the comments. He talks about his waist, his striated glutes. And honestly, to be completely honest, as impressed by a lot of Samson's updates as I have been, this one didn't impress me as much. Obviously, he looks really good here. Obviously, he's one of the best bodybuilders on the planet. But from a conditioning standpoint, and especially if you're talking about striated glutes and dryness and hardness and just that grainy, deep detail, I didn't think this picture was the best representation of that. If you think of, some of what we've seen from Hadi, if you think of some of what we've seen from Hunter Labrada, or even Derek, who we're going to talk about next, I think when you look at Samson here, and if you look at what he's talking about, obviously his waist is very small for his size, but if you look at his glutes, yes, you can see some striation, some detail, some dents in the glutes, but he really doesn't look that dry and that hard in the lower body, and I know that's nitpicking, but at 2 weeks out, there's a lot of guys that we've seen so far show their lower bodies that I think look a lot more detailed and drier than this update that we see here. So, like I said, I've been impressed. I've been really impressed by a lot of Samson's recent updates. This was not one that I looked at and I was like in shock of how crazy he looked. This was one where my honest opinion, I felt a little bit underwhelmed looking at this one. So this was kind of the first one in a while from Samson where I wasn't like, wow. I was kind of like, I don't know about this one. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. You can totally disagree with me. Some of you might. Now, the final story that I've got for you guys today, we got some more physique updates from Derek Lunsford, last year's runner-up at the 2023 Mr. Olympia. Right now, these updates are 2 weeks out. And Derek, in my opinion, best back on the Olympia stage, bar none. I'm going to just go ahead and say that. I think he does have the best back double bicep, the best back lat spread out of anybody on that Olympia stage based on what we saw last year. And based on these updates that we're seeing this year, it looks like we're going to see an even more impressive back from Derek. And I think I just want to reiterate my opinion that I do really feel like if anybody is going to pull off the upset, and if we have a new Mr. Olympia crowned this year, my gut feeling is that it's going to be Derek. If somebody wins that is not Hadi, my gut is just telling me Derek is the guy. If you think about all the factors that we've talked about with Derek, all the reasons why he stands to be better at this year's Olympia than he was last year, and I think by possibly a significant margin better, you can make a pretty strong argument in your head for why he could win this Olympia this year. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Again, let's not think about any other division. Just men's open bodybuilding. Give me your top 6 predictions for men's open in order, and who is your winner. That's going to wrap it up for the video, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.